Okay. Hey, thanks everyone for joining. I think this is one of the first outreach programs from an AI Center perspective with the community. So I'm happy to be involved in that and kind of getting you all up to speed on what we do with AI Center and what are the different aspects of it. One of the things I actually want to get to at the end of this presentation is it's actually very simple to integrate AI and ML into your workflows. There might be a notion that it's complicated, or it takes a lot of time to implement all of this, but I want to show you how simple it is and how useful it can be in your workflows. Okay, so with that, I'll start presenting. Just a disclaimer, this presentation is going to be lesser slides and more of talking. So I have about 7 slides, but it should be pretty much about talking. Okay, so safe harbor, I'll say a lot of things that we expect to do this, that we believe in this and plan and project. Take that with a pinch of salt, but that's all with good intention that we want to get there. Okay, so I'll start with AI and RPA, right? These are two different businesses by itself. Let me stop video just for quicker, just for lesser bandwidth reasons. Okay, Rohit, can you confirm you can see my screen already?
Yes, I can see your screen. Maybe you can go on the presentation mode as well. If that's okay.
I'm going to switch apps pretty quickly.
Okay, cool, so, perfect. Yeah, sure.
So, okay, so AI and RPA, they kind of they're referred in very separate contexts, but then they're also referred together. So in the course of this presentation, I think we're going to answer 2 questions. One is why RPA needs AI, and the second one is why AI needs RPA. Right? And then how these two can go hand in hand with each other. The first question is pretty simple, so I'm starting with that. Why RPA needs AI? So I think most of you who would have joined from the community have more expertise with RPA and automating a lot of business processes. So you know the fundamentals of RPA. The way we see AI add on top of that is to make it more useful, right? Like you have a lot of rule-based automations. Like let's say, for example, you're setting up an automation to decide what to do when you get an email into an inbox. Let's say you're trying to classify emails, for example. Let's say you get an inbox of emails wherein you get positive feedback, you get negative feedback, and so on. It's very difficult to do this classification as positive or negative without the use of AI today. If you have some rules in place, like for example, let's say you're looking for words like good and all kinds of adjectives of good, and you're going to say that it's positive, you can have someone say the food was not good, and then you're going to classify that as a positive email if you're not using AI on top of it. So your rule-based approaches, they do a great job of automating a lot of things, but then they have their limitations. This is where AI can add on top of RPA. So an AI model can read the content of an email and predict if it was, like, for example, if it's a sentiment model, it can predict if it was a positive or a negative sentiment on the email. If it was a classification model, then it can predict a little bit more things as well. It can predict if it was like a complaint or what type of complaint it was, which component it should be routed to, and so on, right? So that is where our AI adds on top of RPA, and it's going to be very simple to add AI to RPA, right? And that's why we have AI Center. We have been working on it for a couple of years now. It's mature enough to be used within your workflows, and we'll see how we do that. Okay, so I'm going to start with the very basics of AI here. There are a couple of components to AI. So I'm going to assume that we start from scratch here in terms of explaining what AI is. So let's say you want to. In AI, the concept of a model is basically something that can give out predictions. It can tell you, you can give it some input, and then the model can predict, different types of model can predict different types of things. A classification model can predict which class your input belongs to. An object detection model can tell you exactly where in the image a particular object is, and so on, right? So just consider a model as something that can make predictions for you. you can, the simplest form of AI is to take a model that's already in the market out there. And this means that it's just a black box to you. You can just pass it some input and it can tell you what class it was, right? And you can predict with a certain level of confidence, and you can use that in your workflow, right? But let's say, and before we get into how these models are able to predict, you need to train your model. The concept is that you provide a machine learning model with thousands of data points, labeled data, by saying that, okay, this is an email that is positive, this is an email that is negative, this is positive, this is negative, and so on. And you can train your model on that. So the model learns from these emails what you call as positive and what you call as negative. And once it has learned this, it is able to make predictions on new emails that you pass to it. Right? Now let's say you've trained a model. So this process is called training, giving it these 1,000 inputs and labeled inputs, and using that to build your model. That process is called as training. Say that you have trained your model on a healthcare data set, right? And you're able to classify some things on healthcare as positive or negative, and then you go into, okay, it's this is about a patient requesting for a doctor. This is a patient that's following up with the previous request that the doctor had for him or her, and so on. So it could have been trained on a healthcare data set. And now if you take this model and try to apply it in a different industry, like a finance industry, it might not work all that well, right? So you need to retrain this model with your custom data. So this is the model. This is the second process, wherein you take the model, you find a model package, a email classifier model, for example. You upload your data and you train your ML model, and you deploy that model and then use that model within an RPA pipeline, right? Which means that the predictions are going to be better, more accurate, and something that's more custom for your kind of data. So it's going to be more confident in terms of predictions, right? So the first step is the simplest one. Take an out-of-the-box model, assume that it's going to work for you, try it out, deploy that model, and use that within an RPA workflow. The second one is, okay, you've tried that. You see that the confidence is not too high, or you're getting a lot of wrong predictions. What you want to do is you want to take your custom data sets, train a machine learning model, and then deploy that trained model into your RPA workflow so that predictions are better, right? And the last one here is how you can get a feedback loop out of this as well, right? So in this example, in the second example, I'm assuming that you had labeled data set. Like, for example, you had this 1,000 data points called positive or negative, then different classes for each of the data points, and you trained your model with that. In the third step, I'm going to assume that you don't have even that. You just have emails, for example, right? And you're gonna classify. You're gonna need the tool to classify the data itself. So you start with labeling your data, use the labeled data to train your model, deploy that model, and then use that model in an ML skill. Now, what you can do with the low confidence predictions, like, for example, you send it a bunch of emails, you're going to get predictions that are high in confidence and predictions that are low in confidence. Sometimes my model will tell me that, hey, I know this is positive with a 90% confidence. Sometimes the model will tell me that, hey, I know it's positive with a 60% confidence, right? So you can set a threshold and say that for the ones that are low confidence, you can pass this back to a data labeling place, and you can relabel the data with the human in the loop in the process. So someone reviews all this and says, okay, the model predicted this correctly, the model did not predict this correctly, and so on. Okay, and then that goes into a training pipeline again. You deploy this model, you use it within the RPA workflow, your predictions have improved. Okay, so this is the way you go from a very simple model that has not been trained on your data set, that was trained by someone else, but is something that you know might work for you. You take that, try it out with the RPA workflow. The next one is take a custom data set, which is something for you, for your vertical industry, and you take that, you train your model with that, deploy that, and use that in an RPA workflow. The third step in the process is also implementing a feedback loop, wherein once you get a prediction out of the model, you see that it's low in confidence, and you have a human review that, and then push that back as data for more training so that your model gets better and better. Okay? So these are kind of the stages of implementing AI, and something that we support all of this within AI Center. We support a simple model that you take out of the box. We support a model that you can retrain on you upload your own data sets and you retrain the model. And then we also support the feedback loop, especially on text data, wherein once a prediction has been made, you can pass that to a human. The human can review that prediction, and that goes back into the model. So all of these three workflows are supported for us. Okay, so that's the basics of AI and building machine learning models. So this is a quick slide where I'm going to just map the same processes to the same elements in the UI that we have. So we have what we call a datasets component wherein you can upload your data, a data labeling component to label this works for text today, but then we want to get to images as well. And then the ML packages is basically the step of picking an ML package that you think might work for you. Process of pipelines is basically the running a training pipeline to train with your custom data. And then skills is basically the way where you deploy it. So the process of deployment means that your model is hosted somewhere in some server so that you can hit an API and ask for predictions, and you get back some predictions that are relevant for you. Okay, and the one on this side is basically about how you can use an ML skill within an RPA workflow. So this is a screenshot from Studio, wherein you have an activity called an ML skill activity that you can use to invoke a prediction, a particular image or a file that you have. Okay, when we go to the demo, you'll see all these components live. I just wanted to make sure that what is what when we get there. Okay, so this is the workflow that I'm going to use as an example here today. So this is what we call a meter reading workflow. I think I might have a quick video of this as well, right? Let's see. So the concept here is that you upload a picture of a meter. Once you upload this, there is some kind of prediction that is happening here. What happens is this tries to draw a box around the digits that correspond to the reading. So here you see that this machine learning model was able to predict that this is the place where the digits are. This box is where the digits are, and then you crop that image out just to represent the digits, and then you pass that to what we call an OCR model. OCR model stands for optical character recognition. So if you pass something that's a picture and that has digits or words in it, it's able to digitize that for you. So it's able to extract the right number from a picture of the digits. Okay, so this is a process, and I'm going to show this to you on Studio as well, right? So you first have a file. You're going to take that file out of storage. You're going to pass that to a machine learning model. The machine learning model is going to predict where exactly the box is or the digits are, and it's going to give you the coordinates of that box. It's going to say your digits for this reading are in coordinates between this and this. So it's going to give you a set of X and Y coordinates. You're going to crop that image so that you take only those X and Y coordinates and pass that to an OCR model. And the OCR model will give you the output of the digitized code, the number of the reading that you're looking for. Now, I could have done another thing. I could have just passed this entire image to an OCR model. But then the problem with that is you're going to get a lot of junk along with that. You're going to get KWH, you're going to get the digits, you're going to get all these alphanumeric characters here. You're going to get these digits as well. And then once you get all of this out, you have no idea to say what the meter reading was. So that is the reason why we need a model to draw a box around the relevant digits, then pass only those digits to an OCR. Okay, so this is the workflow that we saw. Now let's go into actually building a model for this, right? So let me go back to this. So this is where we start with a demo of AI Center itself. So let's check that. Okay, so this is where you land when you say AI Center on the tool, right? So you get a list of projects. This one is a test out of the box project. So here's where you land. So the first, let's try the first workflow first, right? So we discussed 3 types of workflows here. So we discussed the workflow where you just take an ML package, deploy that as an ML skill, and then use that ML skill within an RPA workflow, right? So let's go to ML packages. I want to pause here just to talk about the different kinds of ML packages that we offer. So we have what we call the UiPath packages. So these are better supported from us. These are packages which have been trained by UiPath machine learning folks themselves. And then we also have a bunch of open source packages. So these are models that are available in your marketplace outside today. And we have decided that these models are, we have picked and chosen basically that these models are some things that are super useful in an RPA workflow. And we have taken them and adapted them into this interface. So these models as well. So think of this as a machine learning model marketplace, and you have a bunch of open source packages, and you have a bunch of packages that we support from UiPath. Okay. Let's take what we need for this example. So let's go into image analysis. Let's take object detection. So this is the model that we will be working on today. Okay, good. So if you see, this gives you a little bit more description about the model itself. It tells you that this machine learning package was pre-trained on a data set. So you can directly create an ML skill and use it for identifying 80 classes of something. So maybe this was probably not used for meter readings, but this was used to identify cats, dogs, other animals, birds, road signs, cars, all kinds of things, right? But most likely, I don't think this was used for reading meters. Okay, so what you can do is I can say that, okay, I want this package version 1. I can say submit. Then I can give a name for this package. I can say demo, demo 1, for example, and I can say submit. Okay. So what this does is this creates a copy of this machine learning model for you. So you have it. If you go to an ML packages, you see a list of all the packages that you've used within this account. Demo 1 is the one that I just created. Okay. So let's go back to the second step in the process. So I found an ML package that might work for me. Okay. Now the second step is I need to deploy this ML model. The process of deploying is what we call an ML skill here. So I can go to ML skills. I can say I want to create a new one. Okay. And I give this a name. So let's say demo 1 skill. Demo 1 was the package. I choose a version of the package. I'll come back to the versioning. This is super important as well. But I can say that this was 1.0. I say that I'm going to need to create a skill with this. Here are a bunch of new other features here. So you can say that you want to undeploy the skill if you have not used it for 1 day, a week, and so on. So how this basically works is that if the skill is deployed, it's going to be consuming some resources and it's going to be charging you for something. But you can say that if it's not used for 1 day, go ahead and undeploy this so that you're not wasting your money. Right? So let's say I want to undeploy up. Okay, now you see that this skill that I'm trying to deploy is in a deploying state. And then once it is deployed, I'll come back to when it gets deployed. Okay, the status is still deploying. So this takes a little bit of time. This takes about 5 minutes to deploy. So once it is deployed, this is a skill that I can use from an activity workflow. So I can go to activity now, tell you how to use that. So this was the flow that we discussed earlier. So you read in a file. Once you have the file, you can say that, hey, I want to use this with an ML skill. You select the endpoint or a robot. In this case, it's an endpoint. An endpoint basically, a robot means that you've connected your Studio account to that particular AI Center account. So you'll be able to see all the skills that were deployed on that AI Center account over here. If not, you can use if not, you can use an endpoint. If you have different accounts, for example, one of the things that you will see here once this deployed is you will be able to see an API and an API key, the URL and an API key. You plug that in here, and you pass the you pass the input file here. So this is an image. So the way this works is that given an image, it's going to predict the coordinates of a box with certain confidence level, right? So you pass the image to this, you get a JSON response, and then you use the JSON response in the next part of the workflow, right? So if I go back to this, so this is the model. I pass the image to it. I take the JSON response, I crop the image with that, and I pass that to an OCR model, which will give me the digits out of it. So this basic workflow I was able to create in just a couple of clicks, right? But most likely this is not going to work for you, depending on the use case. Like, for example, if you're trying to classify emails, this might work great. If you're trying to classify some piece of text, it might work for you. But it depends on what the model was trained and what you're trying to do with it, right? Okay, so let's go to the next step. The next step in the process is if the simple out-of-the-box model does not work for you, you can retrain this with custom data. So you can go into your data sets and you can create a new data set, and you can say that you want to upload some data from your local machine, and you upload examples of digits, of meter readings, basically. So let's go into one of the example data sets that I've uploaded. So I see a bunch of JPEG images here, right? So I think I would have downloaded a couple of them. So this is one of the meters, right? So this is what I basically pass here is an image, and I also pass the annotations along with that. I say that the digit 3 is at X and Y value coordinates here, and so on. So these you can generate these XML files out of other labeling tools if you want to. But this is a training data set. This is basically thousands of images of meters along with the bounding box coordinates for that, which will act as inputs to train your model, right? So let's go back to this. So this is the data set that I've uploaded to train this model. I can go to this ML package. I can say that I want to go to this one. I can go to pipeline runs. Pipelines is basically the running a model training version of the nomenclature within AI Center. So I can say I want to create a new pipeline. I want to create a training pipeline. I want to say I want to use the demo one package and give it the same version numbers. And here it asks me for an input data set. So I can go into this and say, this is my input data set. So, okay, I pass this as an input data set. This is going to take a few hours to train. So it takes all the data in that data set. It passes that through a machine learning model. It builds a new model for you at the end of this process with hopefully better prediction accuracy to get the box out, to get the right coordinates for the box. Okay. And there are a bunch of parameters here. You can say that you want to train on a GPU. If not, it trains on a CPU. And then you can say you want to run this now, or you can run this as a recurring pipeline and so on. Okay. So a bunch of things that you can do here. This is basically where you can train your own model. And then once your model is trained, you will see this. This was an earlier trained model, for example. So for example, this model was trained on a base version 11.2, and then it generated 11.2, which means that your minor version basically updates based on the training. So the number of times you train, your minor versions is going to keep getting updated. Okay, so these are the outputs of the training pipeline. Now I can go again to skills. I can say I want to create a new skill with a different version. Like for example, for YOLO, I might have 11.1, for example, 11.2. So this means that I'm in the second part of this workflow, wherein I'm actually deploying a model that was trained on a particular custom data set. Okay. And hopefully the predictions out of this model gets better for you. Okay, so I think we have covered both a simple process as well as a process wherein you take your own data, you take your own data sets, you train your own ML model, you build a machine learning skill out of that, and you deploy that skill in your workflow. So again, I think we touched upon using this, but we can go into a little bit more detail here. Okay, so in your studio workflow, you can create, I can show you that so that Okay, so here's how I create an ML skill. It's one of the available activity types. I can say that I want to connect using a robot or an endpoint. Again, robot is basically if your account is already connected to your cloud account. If not, use an endpoint. In which case you need to provide it with the URL and API. Let's go back to this just to see if this deployment was complete. Yes. So the earlier version of the skill that I deployed is now available. I can modify this deployment and say that I want to make this public. So once I do that, so that request has been accepted, you will see that it's updating. So let's come back to this once it's available. So you'll get your URL and your API key out of that once that update is complete. And this is just to test the skill to see that it's available and for accepting inputs. And then for this particular model, your input is a file. You select your input, you provide the file path here, then you get the JSON response is create a variable where you get the output of the JSON response. So in this case, you will get an output of, you'll get a bounding box coordinates out of this, and then you need to consume the bounding box coordinates in the rest of your workflow. So this is the process of once you have an ML skill, using that in an RPA workflow to get a prediction out of it and then use that prediction in some of your business processes downstream. Okay, so so I think we've seen most of these processes now. Just going to wait a bit for this updating to complete if it has. Okay. Okay, so now that your skill is available public, you get your URL, which you can copy from here, and you also get an API key that you can copy out of this. So once you plug that in here, that means that now all the requests from here gets routed to that particular ML skill, and then you get a prediction response out of that. Back here. Now this is not a skill that I'm going to use right now, so I'm going to say stop, which means that it stops the skill. It's no longer available for use. The next time you need to use it, you need to say resume again so that it gets deployed again. Okay, I'm going to go back to one or a couple of important concepts here. So the packages part of it, there are the one that I was talking about was an image package. So it's an image analysis package. You have a bunch of other things. You have a lot of document understanding processes, packages. So these are all models that were trained on documents, bank statements, for example. There should be a model for invoices, ID cards, invoices, and then there is invoices in different geos because in different geos, the invoices look different. So this is how basically we have one package, but then we have to train it differently for invoices in Australia versus invoices in China versus invoices in India and so on. So you see a bunch of basically machine learning models that have been adapted for particular use cases by training it on different data. So there are a bunch of text-based workflows here, documents in text, and then there are a bunch of image-based workflows as well. I can have image moderation, object detection. Image moderation is basically trying to find out if something is safe for work, not safe for work, and so on. I have image analysis, which will have image classification. So this one is to classify images of a particular kind. There is a signature comparison. So if you're in like a financial sector or like a bank use case, you might want to compare signatures and see how close a particular signature is to the one on your image. So you can use a signature comparison model for that. There are also a bunch of regression models. So if you go to tabular data, so this is when you're trying to predict, say, housing prices, and you have a bunch of data that is a current price given a particular set of features of the house. And then you can predict the price given a new house and a new set of features, what the price should be, right? So that's where regression models come into use, and we have a bunch of them for tabular data as well. Okay, so this is the wide range of use cases that we do support today within AI Center, and we're adding more and more of these. Data labeling, as I said, works on text today. It's an interface for you to label data if you do not have labeled data that you want to train your models with. Okay, I'm not going to go into logs. Logs basically is output of all of these models, so that you can track them from an audit perspective. Okay, I think I've gone through a bunch of things. I'm going to pause here before my last slide. Any questions on this process? Anything that has come up that we need to answer before we conclude on the demo of the showing you the AI Center aspect of it?
Yes, someone from the chat, Abhinav, asked a question. Am I audible?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Abhinav asked question is, what is the model which is used to identify the coordinates of digits? I'm not sure what the question is. Abhinav, if you're there, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, the demo which you showed, meter demo, right? In this first from the model, you are feeding it to the model, and then model is trying to give you the coordinates where exactly the digits are, and then you are feeding it to the OCR, because directly if we feed, there will be a lot of other things can come up in the string after if we feed directly to the OCR. So what is used over there? Because we had similar use case where we had a PDF inside that barcodes were coming. So exactly, barcode had a few numbers. We needed to get only those numbers, but there are a lot of other text and other numbers in that PDF. So we rejected that use case for DU. So I wanted to know what model we used for that, for finding the coordinates of only the digits and then feeding it further.
Got it. So we use something called an object detection model. I've opened the help page for this here. You can refer to this. So this package was pre-trained on a COCO dataset. A COCO dataset is a publicly available dataset that is capable of identifying about 80 classes of objects, basically. So this model is something that could probably work for your use case. I'm pretty sure this will work well for your use case, unless there are like multiple barcodes and you're looking for one particular barcode. But if your document has just one barcode and you want a box
one kind of barcode only.
Okay, and then this model should work pretty well for you. So you can actually look this up as part of our documentation on object detection, and then you should be able to see this model.
Thanks. I will go through it. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, but it is a generic question on document understanding. Do you want me to take it now, or I can take it at the end?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So in the process, I mean, we are using document understanding in one project, right? So let's say we train document understanding model on a couple of invoices, and we uploaded all of the data and we labeled the data using data labeling, right, in AI Center. Now, when we want to retrain the model, we have a couple of new, invoices, and there is a new field which has been added recently. Now, I trained a couple of data with this new field. Now I want to retrain the model. So is it suggested to retrain the model on the previously published model, or do I have to retrain the model in the base version again?
I think document understanding recommends you to retrain on the base version. So if you have like 100 data points that you train today, and then you have 100 data points coming tomorrow, they suggest that you take the 200 data points and train on the original version of the package. They've seen that to give you better results than iterative training on trained pipelines.
Yeah, because what we did is a couple of times we trained it on the previous published model, but then the accuracy was not that great. And we once trained it using, when we tried to export, we selected all labeled, and we trained it on the base version, and then it started giving good results, on the new field as well.
Yeah.
So I was kind of confused there.
Yeah, it depends on the models, and it's for certain models, they know best that they suggest that, hey, we want all the data again, and we want to train from scratch, especially if a new field is added. Even though some data points might have that field missing, that's okay. But they would like to train the base image from scratch rather than the model performance is just known from the way they built the models, that it performs better that way.
Got it. And what would you recommend? Let's say if you have seen a couple of use cases, or you might have already worked with a couple of businesses, right? So what do you suggest? What is the best training method? Do you recommend training manually on the data labeling, or do you recommend training using or importing the data which is generated by Action Center, the data which is generated automatically in data sets? What is best?
What do you mean by data that is generated automatically? Sorry.
So let's say if the accuracy is less, we send that data to Action Center. A human will validate that data on the Action Center manually. If the fields are missing, human will allocate the fields on that data. And from the Action Center, that data we will directly upload it to the datasets.
Yes.
So that is one way of retraining, which we have seen. And another way is manually uploading those documents which were having less accuracy, and manually labeling those in the data labeling trainer. So what do you think? What do you recommend?
Technically, if the quality of labeling is the same, it should not matter, because see, ultimately you need good quality trained data to retrain the model to improve your predictions, right? Whether that went through Action Center and you did the labeling on the tool versus you did the labeling offline and you uploaded that data set, it should not matter too much.
Got it. And what is the best retraining people follow for document understanding, like monthly or weekly, bi-weekly?
That depends on your volume, right? So if you have 1,000 data points come in every day, and your quality of predictions are pretty low, you might have to do it every day. And then you might set a recurring pipeline to train every day as well.
Until the model gets stable. Got it.
Yeah. So basically, this is why within a studio workflow, you can do multiple things, right? Like you get a confidence value along with your prediction, and then you can use the confidence value to say, okay, if it's below 70%, push that to Action Center for human labeling. Then you can monitor that. You can say, okay, I did this for a week, and then now I see the confidence go up to 80% for most of my data. So you see an increase. Then once it hits probably 90, it's going to stabilize sort of, right? So that's how you see improvement with your predictions.
Got it. Thank you. That answers my question. Sorry to take your time. Yes, Abhinav has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just to add up to Nisar's question, the fallouts which are there in Action Center. One way which Nisarg said that, okay, these are the fallout, they are already part of our storage bucket, or we are storing, okay, these are the fallout which came to Action Center, and we manually train it, either manually train it. One more thing, which the case 3 which you just now showed, feedback loop. So how, I'm not aware, can you give an overview how it's been done if feedback loop is on? So if something goes wrong and the confidence is low, it goes to Action Center. Person finds the right coordinate and gives it to all the values, submits it, and then the workflow continues, and also our model gets retrained automatically. And how does it works? And the version will also get automatically updated in the feedback loop.
Yeah. So what you can do is, when you create a pipeline, you can say that you want a recurring pipeline, and you can set a time interval as to how often it should recur, and so on, right? So what happens is that you've already provided an input data set here, and your data labeling export should go in as your input data set here.
No, so I'm talking about the case 3 where you said that if we turn on the feedback loop,
yes,
in the slide which you said, but here we are not passing the data set, right? It will vary every time. The path may vary because it will be dynamic, right?
That's what I'm saying. So whether you automate it or not, so what I'm trying to say is, yes, once you have data labeling done, you have at the end of the data labeling process, there's an export, right? You export your data set, and I don't have labeled files here. So you can create a name for your export. You can say that your pipeline should always recur and pick data from that particular exported data set. So, and you can set it to weekly, for example, which means what happens is weekly your pipeline runs and it looks for exported data, picks that up and trains the model by itself. I understand that there's one step in the process that might not be automated. Once you finish your action center, you need to manually come to a data labeling. Your labels will say, your status will say labeled here, and then you need to manually do an export from here. So that is one step of the process that is still manual. That's because you might have thousands of people labeling your data, but someone needs to review it before saying that, yes, they've labeled it correctly and it needs to go.
That is a second case we are talking. If you can go to the slide, sorry. That is second, which this you are talking about. Okay, we upload the labeled data set and then someone reviews it and put it into a export. Then recurring pipeline will start and whatever export is there, it will work on it. This is what you're talking about. But I'm talking about the third one, the retrain loop.
No, even in the third one, I'm saying that you get low confidence predictions out of the model. You pass that to a labeled data session. What you can do in your activity is
okay, so we need to, whenever there is we need to use some activity which will pass that PDF to labeling session. Okay,
exactly. So you have an option to create a labeling task out of this. So what you do is, once you get the output of this, you will get the output prediction and the confidence.
And of
check
course,
if the confidence is below some threshold and create a labeling task from here. When you do that, what you basically do is you can set the project and you can set the session to which this particular file should go to. And then you can see that as an action for a human. Once that is labeled, that shows up in your export, it becomes a part of your data set, and then you can use that to train your pipeline. Does that complete the loop for you?
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, Rohit, can we continue? And then I'll take a few more questions at the end of it.
Sure. We don't have any questions. We can continue, Shivam, I think.
Okay, got it. So this was my last slide. This is basically trying to answer the question as to why AI needs RPA. Let's take a picture on the right. This is a simple use case, even simpler than the one that we discussed to detect objects. The goal of this use case, for example, is to classify emails. And let's say you have an inbox where you get both complaints as well as feedback or positive feedback about your product. And your complaint can be for different reasons. So the first thing that you need to do, for example, is to classify the sentiment, saying that this is positive feedback and this is a complaint, right? And then the action that you take is, if it's a positive feedback, you send out an email saying, thank you for working with our product. It's happy to have you as a customer, and give the customer name, send out an email with the customer's name on it, right? And if it's a complaint, you need to recognize which team or component the complaint is on. You need to assign it a priority, and then you need to put it into you need to create a service ticket or put it into your Jira system, or what you follow for creating service tickets, right? So let's say this is a very simple use case. You get emails. You need to have some machine learning work on top of that, right? So there are two models that are needed here. One is a sentiment classifier that will detect if it's a positive feedback or complaint. And then you need a model that's called an NER model. This is a named entity recognizer. So what this basically does is it tries to extract certain values from the piece of text, right? It tries to extract a customer name. It tries to extract some teams or the component on which the complaint is about. And then it also tries to, based on the sentiment, also tries to get a priority of it. If somebody has escalated in the complaint, you need to assign it a higher priority and so on. Okay. There's also one other aspect to this. Sometimes you might have to override the priority with a business priority. This is because you might have some strategic customers and you might want to give them higher priority. So you take the priority assigned by the system or the machine learning model, and then you add the business priority on top of that, and then you create a service ticket with that particular priority, right? So you create a service ticket with a customer name, with the component that it needs to go to, and the priority that the ticket should have. This sounds like a pretty simple model, or a bunch of models. So So basically here, like you see, even for a simple use case like this, you need to connect multiple ML models together. It's not just one ML model that's going to give you all the output that this use case requires. You need to connect one model, the output of one model to another. You need to connect the input data to each of these models, be it emails or the strategic customers database that you have. You need to connect all these inputs. You need to take the outputs and then you need to make actions out of this. You need to send emails, you need to create service tickets and all of this. So this is and of course the business rules need to override as well. So this whole ecosystem is something that you can do with UiPath Studio and an automation and basically build this automation out, right? If you just have a tool that's going to build you machine learning models, that's not going to be of any use if it does not have all these connectors and all these inputs and outputs managed for you to get to a solution or a workflow that's actually valuable to your business. So this is where I think AI needs RPA as well. And it's not like these two are standalone components, but these need to be integrated. So I see a lot more value when all of this comes together and you're able to build automations and actually apply these automations into the real world. If not, you might have one sentiment classifier, you might have one NER model, and then even if they're performing really well, even if the prediction quality and the confidence is really high, you need the rest of the pieces in place for you to make use of this. Okay, so I just wanted to touch upon those two use cases. One was a little bit more complicated with images and objects and detections, but I think that is still relevant to use cases like the barcode scanners or say, for example, even signatures that you need to extract out of a document and so on. This one is probably something that's more relatable with emails. You could have a bunch of these ML use cases with either documents or text or emails, and then connect them all together to make solutions work for you. Okay, I think that's all I had, but I'm open to questions. We can talk about use cases. We can talk about different other aspects of AI Center and how you can use that. I had one last slide. This is just a bunch of resources for you. So one is the Academy, and we have a course on the AI Center overview. I think that's pretty well made. So that would walk you through all the aspects of the AI Center and how you can use that. The documentation is also a good place to learn both about the models as well as about the components of AI Center. We published a blog pretty recently. It basically voices the same opinion. It's also by me, so it's obvious that it's the same opinion. That AI and RPA needs to go hand in hand to productize the machine learning model. So I encourage you to read that. And any questions you have, any feedback that you have on the product, I'm happy to take that. You can reach out to me on my email or LinkedIn. It should be pretty easy to find. Okay, more questions?
Yep. I think you can just have a look at the chat. I'm not sure if that was covered. Any tool which can help us to create ML model?
Okay, I'll answer that.
Yeah.
Okay. With respect to tools, there are a couple of things, right? So you can build these machine learning models within AI Center, or if you have existing accounts with, say, SageMaker, for example, or any other machine learning model building tools, we can integrate with that as well. All you need is a public URL and an API key to access that. Within Studio, you will be able to use an HTTP activity to send data to that URL behind which you've deployed your model, and you can get back the predictions out of it. So we are pretty open so that you can use pretty much any tool that you need to build a model. So when you say you want to build a model, are you talking about the labeling aspect of it? Are you talking about the model building itself? Can you clarify which part of it?
So, hi, Shivaram. So this is the question I asked. So I'm saying, like, can we do we have any tools which can help us to create a ML model? Suppose we don't know how to create a machine learning model in that case. Any freeware tool or something?
No, I'm saying that the one that I highlighted within AI Center are actually free models that are available for you to try. Like for example, these models, right? There is nothing that you have to do on top of this. There is no code. There is no. This is all no code tools. So you can say that you just need to pick the right model out of this and use that in your workflow. Whether it's understanding documents or images or plain text is all language analysis and so on. So pick the right model from this, try to use it in your workflow. And if your prediction or the confidence of the models predicting something is not right, then you can go back to training the model in more complicated processes. But some of these out of the box.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute and you can just ask. I think it would be good.
Issue of one more, which I wanted to ask, like, what is your suggestion? Like, if we have for invoice processing, we want to create a IDP solution using document understanding. Any recommendation from UiPath side or from your side, how much for each of the vendor we should train, and what should be the percentage of training versus the, like, if there are 1200 vendors, so you will suggest like train on all 1200 because there will have little variance. What will be the threshold you will keep for each vendor you should train? Like I have read in the documentation 40, but sometimes they are little more complex, or within one vendor there are little different patterns. So what is the minimum threshold you will keep for each vendor, and how much percentage of the vendor we should really train, and how much we should keep it for evaluation? What is the best practice suggested by you?
I might not be able to give you out of the box best practice because see, even the numbers called out there will be with a lot of caveats that say, hey, this is something from our recommendation, but it might vary based on your data sets and the model that you're training. So I would say keep it dynamic, right? Like we discussed in your studio workflow,
But the thing is, like,
yeah.
business wants to ask, like, if they are taking a DU AI units package, okay, they want to know, okay, this much you want to, like, if we have to buy a AI units whole bundle, we have to keep an, okay, this much we will keeping for training. So we have to analyze, okay, if for our invoicing, these are the 1200 affiliates and they provide around 400 million of invoice in a year. So we know the count, we know the 1200 vendors also, and now we need to, as a developer or architect, we need to give the number. Okay, boss, this much will be required in training itself, and this much of vendors we will train. You're getting my point. So that something is, any suggestion from UiPath side?
Got it. I understand your problem, but again, it's going to depend on how different these vendors are and how different the invoices are. I would say for a POC, I think you should take what is recommended, like 40 out of each. Try building a model out and then see how the predictions and evaluation confidence is, and then base your recommendations on that. Because it's very like if it's difficult for you to give a number, it's 10 times more difficult for me to give you a number because you have seen those documents, they've not even seen those. So it's gonna be very dependent on the
and
nuances
again,
of
all we should train for all 1200, or we should do a evaluation. Okay, let's take 80 vendors at a time, do the evaluation. If
something like that. Let's take a much smaller subset, like just reduce this problem to probably I would say 10 vendors and a couple of invoices of each of them, and then see if you need to train 60% of the 10. If you need to train from 6 vendors out of 10, that means 60% of your data. Extrapolate that to 1200. I would say reduce that first, tackle a smaller problem, and then expand that based on a learning of that. Expand that to the bigger data set.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, hi, Shivam. Yeah, so I have, so I just used object detection model previously, it's like this. So I just tried with the meter box images actually as now. So, but I was not able to get recognized of those image actually. So do we need to train this COCO data set actually?
Yeah, that's what I said. The COCO data set has been trained on animals, on moving,
Yeah.
on you know, a lot of things that are not actually meter readings, right? Meter readings is very niche use case, so it will not work out of the box, and that's why I had to retrain to be able to use that.
I guess like previously it was non-retrainable. Now I guess it made us retrainable.
Yeah, it's a retrainable model now.
Yeah. Okay, got it.